Okay, for today's video, I wanted to talk about habits. And maybe just like the feeling of feeling stuck in your habits, maybe. Because I guess right now I feel a little bit stuck in terms of what I want to do. And I guess making these videos is one way of sort of throwing a wrench into that routine and trying to shake things up. I think a lot of what we do is sort of threaded together by the things in our life. To explain that a little bit further, it's sort of like where we live, for example. Um, like I arranged my furniture a certain way. Like my desk is over here, and my kitchen's over there, and my work computer and stuff there. I ended up moving my, I guess, entertainment computer kind of into the bedroom over there. And it sets like your space, and it sets the things like how you navigate that space, and how you move through it becomes routine. So then you end up building a habit. Um, so I do have this, I don't know, I guess it's a habit of habits, is every so often I'll like rearrange my space, and I'm in this place where I'm thinking about how do I rearrange my place again. Um, now that I've had like a few life changes. And I find that that is a good way of kind of keeping yourself on your toes. Because when you rearrange things in your, I guess in this case, in your physical space, it changes how you interact and how you do things. And suddenly your brain's like, oh, this is different. We have to adjust and find some new way. Um, I think that includes how we set up other kinds of spaces, like how we set up our friend space. Like who do you talk to, who are your regular supports, and maybe you don't have any, maybe you're afraid to talk to people. Um, but you kind of get yourself stuck in that because it sort of like digs its way in. But then you build a kind of relationship with that space. Another thing you can talk about is like your work habits. Like when I worked from home mostly, and strangely, a lot of my like coding career started right after COVID. So remote was sort of like my baseline actually. So I would have these habits of making myself coffee and setting up my workspace sort of separately than the rest of my other stuff. Um, so that I can have a separate workspace that's not bleeding into the home space too much. But even after like years of doing that, they tend to blend together anyway. Um, but there's also like the way I engage with work. I kind of have these routines of checking my emails and checking the Teams messages or whatever, and um, poking through the board and following a certain kind of process. But the more you do these things, the more they ingrain themselves, and it becomes harder and harder to change. So when it comes to, aptly, it's the New Year's time when everyone wants to change, even though it's kind of an arbitrary day to change things. Um, you don't really know how to. Um, and this is where moving things around helps. I'll explain this a little more using a little bit of my nerdy neuroscience psychology side of my brain, because that's part of me too, so I should embrace that. Um, the neurons that fire together wire together. And what that means is there's circuits in your head, basically cells, that make up who you are and how you think and how you behave and how you feel. And the more you activate those circuits, the stronger they get. And the weaker ones actually die off, like they disconnect. This is, oversimplifying everything, but basically the idea is the more you repeat something, the more likely you are to repeat it. And the things that you don't do, you don't have the wiring for it. Um, there's actually this theory that your consciousness, like think that your brain kind of runs on autopilot a lot of the times, but when you're conscious of something, it's because you want to be like aware of it and make decisions and try to make changes. Um, but a lot of the times we get stuck in our existing habits, and the things that we don't have the wiring for are the things that scare us because we don't know how to do it. You can think back to, maybe this is not the best example, but when we're a baby, we like don't really know how anything works. We kind of forget that. That's why most of us don't have any memories before we're the age of 2, before we start learning to speak generally, because there's no way of sort of understanding the world when you're a baby. It's kind of hard to explain thoroughly here, but we don't even know how to see, and we don't know what sounds are. We don't know what words are. Like, all babies have to learn that. I think language is the best example. When babies start speaking, they just make these sounds that their poorly coordinated little mouths can make, which is usually like, you can't move your tongue. You can use ma, 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 ba, ba, da, da. There's a reason why those sounds are universal for mom and dad, because they're the first sounds that babies can ever really make. So they get reinforced because the parents become happy they're making those sounds. And so it kind of becomes this like feedback cycle. And then as they kind of hear parents and siblings and caregivers and stuff say other things like related to food or toys or playtime and things like that, they get excited and they see the reactions and they learn those like associations. And over time, that's the kind of language that they understand. That's how it's all built up. But everything works in that way. When we do things over and over again, we're building kind of like a language. We have we call it like a process for work, or we call them habits, or routines, or rituals. But they're kind of all the same thing. They're just saying that when you're surrounded by these things, these triggers, or these conditions, you do these things because that's how you kind of tied them together. I like to think of it, I wish I had a diagram, but it's like there's threads, and all the threads are connected to like your habit. And if any of the little pieces are activated, it kind of like triggers this response. I think socially we can think of a lot of it as scripts. It's another kind of habit that we have, is when you say, "Hey, how are you?" "Oh, I'm fine. How are you?" Um, or "What's up? What's up?" Like, we just follow the pattern. Um, Especially when it's not someone who's like close to you. We kind of go through these like generic scripts that don't really say anything, but it's just trying to be polite and just trying to like get through the interaction. Um, but you can learn to break those things. I think the way to do it is by rearranging things. You don't need like a dramatic change. Like I said, they're kind of like threads that tie into each other. So if you want to change, I don't know, you want to, I like to cook, so I'm going to use cooking as an example. If you want to learn how to cook, you kind of have to break out of some part of your routine. Like, you have to think about, oh, when is it that I feel like eating out? Or is it just because it's on the way, because it's nearby? I know a lot of people have those habits, which is like, oh, it's just on the way home. Or I've had a rough day, so that's sort of my like treat and my self-care. Um, so you build up those associations. For me, it's like fried chicken. I was like, I don't know, just when I feel like I have a bad work day or whatever, well, I can treat myself to some fried chicken, and it's good. But when you do it too often, it becomes kind of like a hard trigger, and you don't know what to do with that anymore. You don't know how to escape it anymore because it's so hardwired inside your head. And you feel a certain way because of this and this, so then you deserve these things. And then when time comes and you feel bad for eating too much junk food or feeling too stressed or not sure how to um, sort of like break out of that pattern instead of just like spiraling deeper and deeper into it, we don't know how to do it because you don't have an alternative. So to break a certain pattern like that, when you want to say start learning how to cook things, is you kind of have to like fill your fridge up, buy things that take a little bit of effort to do. If you're not much of a cook, you can start by just having things that you can throw into your oven or your air fryer that sort of matches the same thing. Like I'll buy chicken strips or whatever, or as a sort of, or chicken burgers as sort of like a pseudo replacement for when I want fried chicken. Um, and it helps. You just have to like have something to sort of tilt the balance off. So when it comes to breaking these habits, you have to be like aware why you have them in the first place. You have to think of the conditions that you have. Um, for I think for a lot of us, or a lot of our bad habits that we want to break in the new year, tend to be things we don't like about ourselves, or things that stress us out. Um, but the thing is like when you pile on something that gives you even more pressure, it just makes you more stressed. So you're going to sort of reinforce that pattern. I think the way to go about it is um, to actually like find ways to de-stress. But it's always going to be hard at the beginning. That's why it's tricky to break habits. Um, like for the cooking example or cleaning, like simple things around the home. If you don't do it regularly, it takes extra effort. So that extra effort is automatically going to deter you because suddenly you feel like you have to do more. Um, so there is that initial gap, but if you do it properly, like I've seen people online who have, they say they're like depressed or kind of in a funk, but if they just cleaned up their place or cleaned up their kitchen and their dishes so that it's like usable again, then that sort of like snaps you out. Again, it's just like changing those conditions. So sometimes when you feel stuck and you want to change some, you want to like break a bad habit, give yourself some space or some clarity. It's not so much like do more, um, but do something that sort of eases off some of that pressure. When it feels like there's too big of a barrier to entry, like if your place is too messy, then you don't know where to start. You don't know what to clean up. If you just clean up like a little bit, like your desk, or just do that like load of laundry that you've been putting off, um, or just like dusting and vacuuming like that one part of your room, or finally like cleaning out the microwave or whatever, just something small. That's how you like change that momentum over time. So for me, going back to why I wanted to start doing these videos is because I found that doing the usual. Like, I originally studied psychology and then I went back into computer science for coding, and that was like one big major shift. That took me a while to do. And after doing coding for a while, I'm kind of like in a funk, and I'm not like totally sure if I enjoy it. I kind of went into it mostly for, better pay. And some parts of it are interesting. Actually, I really liked studying it in school a lot more than I like doing it as a job. Because there's a lot of like the theoretical stuff that's really interesting to me. But when you're doing it in the job, it was just like you build this little piece of this machine, and you're not even really sure if you like working on that machine or that application, but that's what you have to do. So for me, it's like I was kind of in this cycle of working and then being stressed from work, and then I guess sort of just doom scrolling on Reddit or YouTube, playing games, watching movies, the usual suspects, or grabbing my fried chicken. And it kind of got me stuck in that routine. So now I'm deciding that, okay, let's throw a wrench into that. Let's shake it up so that, that cycle isn't so much a part of it anymore. I think one of the things that was really demotivating about work is that I can't have any creative input. I'm not allowed to decide how the product's made. I'm not allowed to decide how we work together, how we plan, how we shape anything. So I kind of wanted to bring some of that back. Before I started doing the videos, I started doing a lot of arts and crafts. I tend to be creative on the side. I have a guitar right here that I don't play anymore. I used to do music, but I started doing like little polymer clay things and making little items from video games, Silksong, if anyone's a fan out there. And that was okay. It was sort of like a nice little distraction, or I would start learning how to, um, like going back to trying to write again, but I didn't feel like I had the brain space to write. So I started like, okay, I'll maybe try sketching or drawing. So they were like little changes that kind of got me back into this creative flow. But really, I feel like I wanted to tie all of those things together. So that's why I'm doing videos now. Not necessarily like my videos are creative, but I like having an outlet to decide how I want to shoot things and how I want to approach it. Um, and also like what I want to say and how I want to say it. So there's sort of like that freedom to it. It's basically like writing just on the fly. Um, so I'm hoping that this will shake things up for me personally. And on top of that, I'm gonna go move all my furniture around in my little place and see if that'll shake things up a little bit as well. So, um, yeah, originally I wanted to make these videos in the start of the new year, but I was just like, whatever, why not just start? So I'm glad I just sort of did it. And if anyone out there is looking to change their habits or their routines and come up with something new, just kind of do it. Just find something to shake things up and just do it. It will be a little bit hard at first. I still don't really know what I'm doing with this, but you have to sort of stick with it and go through that little cycle or that little gap where you have to put in extra effort to make things a little different. But once you do, um, things will kind of shift around you. You'll feel it. You'll feel like, wait a minute, like my usual patterns aren't quite happening anymore. And you'll fall into something a little bit different. At least that's the hope for myself, and I hope the same for you. And Happy New Year.